If you're interested in using backing tracks and stems live on stage with your band, then you know there's nothing better you can use than Ableton Live to do that. But there's two things you need to know before you ever drag a stem or audio file into your Ableton Live session. Hey, this is Doggett, Ableton Live certified trainer, founder From Studio to Stage. Today I want to show you what those two things are so that you can really quickly get started using backing tracks with your band in Ableton Live. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you need to know is to make sure that you have disabled auto warp long samples in Ableton Live. First time you sit down on a new computer, you've installed Ableton, make sure that auto warp long samples is disabled. Now, the way Live treats audio is it views it as if it's elastic. It can speed up, slow down, change any key at any point. That's a very useful, valid feature, but it makes things a little complicated in the beginning when you want to drag in a file that's in the key of D, playing at 120 BPM, and you want it just to be in D at 120 BPM. So if we disable auto warp long samples, then it disables Live's ability to try to guess what the tempo and key is and just keeps things locked in. It makes things really simple in the beginning. Eventually we'll incorporate warping to do some really cool stuff though. So in order to disable auto warp long samples, let's go into Live's preferences, command comma. We want to go to the record warp launch tab, and we want to make sure auto warp long samples is set to off. Now what that means is with that set to off, you can drag in your stems into Ableton Live. They're going to play in the original key, the original tempo, and they're going to ignore any changes in Live's global tempo. Again, it's not the most flexible thing. Eventually we'll talk about changing key and tempo using warping, but initially we just want to be able to bring our stems in so that a song at 120 plays at 120. Now, the second thing you need to know is how to drag stems into Live, doing it very efficiently. Now, I see people typically go into Finder and they open a new window and they go to try to browse and find their stems, but you should be using Live's browser. Now, I've included a link below to a tutorial we did earlier in this series where we talk about using Live's browser and adding a folder to the places section here. So what I did is added a folder of a bunch of stems to Live's browser, and I want to drag those stems into Live set. But the thing I need to know to do that is this. So I'm going to just go and select my first stem here. I'm going to hold shift and select my last stem. Now, if you go to drag these in right now the way they are, they're going to all drop in and load into the same track. So you see they're all in the same track there. But what you want to do is hold command, and each one of these stems is going to load into its own track, just like that. So with that, you've got your stems loaded in separately into their own track. Now, one thing that's really cool, if you're using Live 10, this is a great reason to upgrade. It's a small upgrade. It's a small feature, but saves you tons of time. Is Live is going to automatically name your tracks based on what your clips are. So you no longer have to go in and rename your tracks to match your clips, which saves you, probably 20, 30 seconds per song, which builds up across the span of a set, across the span of a week, months, and a few years. So those are our two things we need to know. One, disable auto warp long samples, and two, hold down command as we're dragging our stems in from the browser so that our stems go in separate tracks. Now, if you want to learn more about the essentials of using Ableton Live on stage, make sure to head to fromstudiostage.com/essentials, where I put together a link of all the different courses where we talk about the essentials of Live, how to use warping, how to understand warping to use it to your advantage, to change key, tempo, to sync to the grid, to edit your arrangement, to do lots of really cool stuff, how to connect to audio interface, how to connect to MIDI controller and control Ableton Live. Lots of really, really good stuff. So if you start a 7-day free trial, you'll get access to all those essentials courses plus everything else we have in the catalog. It really is a great way to get started with learning how to use Ableton Live and performing with Ableton Live on stage. That's our focus. How do you use Ableton Live to perform on stage? So make sure to head to fromstudiostage.com/essentials to check out those special courses I put together just for you to take a look at. Start your 7-day free trial, and you're going to be getting going with Ableton Live in no time. Now, thanks so much for watching this tutorial. Make sure to join us next week. We just wrapped up our Essentials series, but make sure to join us next week as we head into a whole new set of tutorials showing you how to use Ableton Live and perform with Ableton Live on stage. Take care, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.